So, we're on the last gluing. See how that looks so much better? Yep, we've glued it down, the tails. That way, the strands can't get pulled out and they're protected by the glue. The next step, we're going to actually cut out, we're going to get a pattern for the bottom part and the top part of the hat dome. Let's finish this up. And then we proceed to the next step. That's what it looks like. Clipped, pinned, and glued. Now we're gonna let the bottom dry as well as we cut out our pattern. So the glue I used is liquid stick for the black parts around the hat. We did pin as we went along just to hold it, and now that it's dry, taking some tweezers, carefully pulling the pins up. It just makes things a little bit easier as you go, because with that glue there, they can kind of stick, but they work. Okay, now that we've removed all the pins, you've got this flap, and you got these two pieces. So what we're gonna do is pull this as much down as you can, using your pins and your glue again. Start with one side. We're going to take it and we're going to fold it back over, and then we're going to pin and glue all the way around, and then once that's done, you take the other side and do the same thing. I'm going to start with the thinner piece versus the thicker piece. So we're going to start here, holding it down. See where, that's where I glued. Oh, I left a pin. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold it down, taking your strap and your glue. Maybe. Oh shit. Yeah, that sucked. That wasn't supposed to happen. Okay, so glue. Put you there. Keep holding it down. And pin. This glue takes about 30 minutes to sit, so I'm going to do one side at a time. Honestly, I've never made a hat like this before, and I'm just kind of seriously winging this as I go. So if you find tricks along the way that work better for you, do it that way. Okay, and then repeat the process until you're all the way. This glue does dry clear. With the one end, I smoothed out to have a smooth border with just glue, and you can tell it's pinned there to hold it in place. And the pins do come out easily. They don't get glued on or anything. Just use some tweezers to pull them out. And then we're going to let that dry again for 30 minutes. And then we're going to do the other side and wrap it around, and then we do the top part of the hat. Okay, as you can see, the glue has dried and we're ready to take out the pins. And I did pin the front side, and then the other layer I did pin. There's some pins. So after we remove the pins, we are going to do the second flap, which is right here. So just take your tweezers, which will be easier because these pins are tiny. Oh my goodness, sometimes they're gonna be a pain in the butt because they're tiny. Don't get tiny pins, get bigger ones. And just pull them out. And that's what we're gonna do next. Okay, now that we're on this other tail, we're gonna glue this bottom seam along this bottom seam. Glue that part first and pin it as you go because it will stay better. And then we're going to glue the top as well, but you want to do that one next. That way you can get everything nice and tight and everything will work in your favor. So this is going to be tricky. So this is going to be our top layer, and this is your bottom layer. So with this, take your corner and fold the seam inward so you don't get any fraying. Make sure you glue it and pin it folded as you go up the stitch line. So fold it in. And this you can use with a paintbrush. Fold in piece and glue on both sides, that way it stays down. Yeah, crap. It does get tricky. Just make sure it gets tucked in and stayed. Okay, so. And then as you're done pinning it, just along that folded seam, and this glue does dry clear, so we're going to continue that straight up. So while we're letting this bottom piece dry, let's take a look at our top flap. So we might need a little extra for just some corners. So that's why we keep our spare pieces just in case. So we can cut a small triangle or small circle to fit right on the dome. Before we do the top triangle, we can do a little dome for it, and it will cover just nicely. And this is a learning process. You will learn as you go what works, what doesn't work. If you have extras, you don't have extras, make it work for you. There's no perfect way of doing this. There was no templates for doing this. Again, I'm just kind of winging it, and that is perfectly fine. So I'm just kind of getting a little visual. I'm going to pin it in the center, and then I'm just going to trim what I don't need because I'll have this top part too stretching over. We'll do that next. So like I said, we pinned the top of the hat, and we're just going to cut. You can see right here where we can cut because that's a little bit extra that I don't want. Same with back here. I don't want that much excess. So we just kind of trim it, but leave enough to pin it and glue it. So with the top of the hat, we've already placed the fabric where we want it. And now you can see that I've glued right here and this side. And all we gotta do is lift the pins, do one side at a time, take the pins off, add the glue, and then pin as you go. And that's what we're going to be doing now. We're just gonna be taking, oops, stay off, these pins out. And then we add the glue along this side so the fabric doesn't go everywhere. Now that we've glued both sides, we're going to just take this top and kind of trim it up to the length that we need, and also glue and pin as well before we add this top fabric piece that goes on top just like that. Okay, so we're kind of at the last part of the fabric on top. So we still have this loose piece, and then I haven't cleaned this front trim yet. We're gonna do this piece last because I'm gonna fold it over and kind of clean it up and make it pretty. With this piece, let's tuck that back down, tuck it back. With this piece, we're going to take our corners that we have right here, and we're gonna fold it inward, and we're gonna tuck it under. Again, just keep pinning, glue and pin the process as you go. I wish I had a better perspective on this, but I don't. So hopefully me doing this will help you along the way. So this is the front of your hat, and if your hat kind of caves in like a cowboy hat, we're gonna follow that same thing. So I'm gonna pin the front, and then with how it kind of peaks, you can kind of do it however you want. You can cut the material, you can fold it under, you can tuck it. I want to kind of, okay, so do another pin. So now that we went ahead and we folded this flap and trimmed it, made it look nice and clean all the way around, this top part is complete. I just have to remove the pins, because make sure you remove the pins. See, you got to be careful. It will bite you. It's an eater. So make sure you take out your pins before you go to the next step. Okay, time to fabric the bottom and the top. So what we're gonna do, yes, you could have done this beforehand, but I didn't. So for instance, just take your fabric, lay it upside down for right now. Because what we're going to do is lay it down, get exactly kind of where we want it to be. And that's why we did make it a little bit wider than planned. So that looks pretty decent. And I also did mark holes or dot lines to where the cardboard is. So I'm going to line that up. Pin this down. Once it's all pinned and down where you want it to be, next, make your circle with a silver Sharpie or whatever color, and then do it 2 times for the top fabric. So now that I have made just little pins, and you can see where the center is, so we're just gonna make dots right here, and just leave yourself some room so you can push that fabric in. And this is going to be cut out, so just leave some room just to play with, because you got extra, you got some plenty. So we'll cut our hole, mark it, and then remove it. So that's my cut. That's all I wanted to do right now, because now I can unpin it and go from there. And then remember to cut your circle with your second piece of fabric that goes on top. Second piece of fabric, same thing. Lay it down, upside down, mark it, and cut your hole. This is where we are, okay? This is a good point. So before you glue everything down on your fabric, you want to make sure it fits. So let's get this to the hat spot. Oh my gosh, dumb camera. Okay. So it doesn't matter what piece you take, because they're both the same size. This is just a dry fit, and we want to take it you have to cut it some more just to make it fit. Now, that's kind of how it's going to look. Like I said, this is just a dry run, just to show you how much length. This is the brim of the hat right here. That's how much I have to work with. That's a good amount. Oh, you can definitely cut more, make it fit. Do the top of the hat last. So now what I'm going to do is flip it over. And before I do that, I'm going to clean my cardboard up just a little. I'm going to give it some trim. I'm going to take a picture of all my notes that I did. And then I'm gonna make it so I can take these off. I just gotta figure that out. Just 1 second. So like I said, I made a ton of notes and numbers to go with my thread, my string, and like, it's okay because we're going to cover this. So who cares if you take notes on what you did and how you did it. Just take pictures. So I have used a utility knife to clean up these edges and make it symmetrical with the hat. And so now what I'm going to do to give this piece of cardboard a little bit more stability, put that down, we're going to take some Gorilla Glue and we're just going to tape it from here to here all the way around. Again, we're going to be covering this with fabric and it's black, so no one's going to see anything. And I'm going to be taking these off one at a time as I tape it, and then I'm going to put it back on, and then we're going to do the fabric next. So now that I've gone around the brim of the hat, that gives it more stability so it doesn't, you know, fall apart and become flimsy, because cardboard will become flimsy. Again, this is my first attempt at this hat, so I'm learning as I go. That's the joy of it. So now we are going to take our fabric, get the right position first, and then pin it. And then after we pin it, we're gonna glue along as we go. Okay, now that you have her all pinned down, do not cut this yet, because we're gonna tuck it under, but we're not there yet. Same with this, don't cut it yet. What I'm gonna do is just cut it into the ring of the brim. There we go. Okay. Make sure it's right here into the rim. So that's what it looks like right now. Be careful with your pins on this side because they are sharp. Now we're just going to slowly go along one section at a time, because you have to move these around, lift it up, and pin. And if you want to go from the back, like right here, you can easily cut a line if you want. It just kind of depends on what you're going to do. So I'm going to start at the back. I'm going to start here, lift it up, glue, pin back down, lift it up, glue, pin back down, all the way around. There we go. All right. So now that the glue has completely dried, and we already took the pins out, so what we're gonna do is flip it back around, and then we're gonna take the bottom of what has been glued, and we're gonna carefully fold it over, and we're gonna pin, glue, pin, and glue, and then just take these and move them up here as you go. And then once you have everything pinned and glued, take them and put it back. Be careful when handling it because look at all the pokies. So just be careful when you handle your hat. It's got teeth. So we've glued all this around and we have taken the pins off. Now, before we do the fabric on this side, I want to do the fabric right there. So what I'm actually going to do to keep these from unraveling and moving, I'm going to just take the piece of fabric that's going to be on top and I'm going to make it like a kind of a cover. I'm going to push this down and then I'm going to go along and pin it down, pin it all the way around so it stays and kind of acts kind of like this so the pins don't move. So I can then flip it over and then pin that and do a liner within that. Granted, you could do that last, but I don't want to. I'm going to do it this way. So like I said, I just pinned my fabric all the way around. That way I can flip it upside down and it's the string's not going anywhere. Now, just be careful where your pins are because they will poke you and bite you. Now you can do your liner and clean this up. And I'm going to do that and I'm just going to do just a half a piece of my fabric because I've got extra, and then I'm just going to line it up. That's it, easy peasy. And then we'll do this step last. So now that I cleaned up the edges and glued it all down, we're going to take this piece and we're just going to line it all the way around. We're going to glue it and pin it as we go.
Why are you being curious? Yeah. Yeah. Fire. Come here.
So in this part, we just took a piece of fabric and just lined the inside. We did pin and glue as we went along, and we just need to dry from there. Easy peasy, just go along the hat. So now that we have glued down in here, this is all glued down. I've taken the pins off, and you can either put a black piece of fabric right here, or you can just leave it. It really doesn't matter, considering it's just the inside of the hat. It's a personal choice. I may leave it, I may not, I don't know. But now I'm going to flip the hat over and take these pins out so I can get ready to do this final step. So like I said, I'm going to go remove all the pins that we took and laid around. So we'll take that off. So this is going to be a little tedious because now we have all the clips and your fabric. So this is cut in kind of a triangle. It really doesn't matter where you start. Personally, I just like starting in the back. And what we're going to do is just take wherever you have raveled it and unravel it. I'm kind of just doing that much, making sure that goes in the mouth again, and then double click and laying it down. Don't get them tangled, but I'm just gonna kind of like section these off and then put the fabric on top. But we do have to glue our string down. So let's just do a few. So here's a good starting point, and we're just going to take the top of our fabric, push it down, possibly, I don't know yet. You'll have these triangle pieces right here, and what you want to do is bring that all the way down to the bottom. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take our pin, take a pin, and push it down to the bottom and pin it on there the best that you can. There we go. Ow! Why did I pin my leg? Don't pin your leg. Oops. And if you need to, where your hole is, if you need to cut it some right here, you can, because you can always put a trim around this and make it decorative. So I'm just going to start with that. And I'm going to trim just a little of it. But I'm also going to take my glue line. I don't know. And I'm going to glue just along the edge of the bottom. We're going to do that. We're not going to glue it. We're going to pin it first. So now that we have trimmed your bottom fabric and glued it to the top, made it all nice and neat and pretty to the way you want it, what we're going to be doing is carefully taking the strands and gluing them down so they don't, you know, go all over the place, get tangled. And when you do this, just make sure you do it smooth and spaced out and just one at a time. Okay, now that we have gone around, glued, taped the string completely down, this is kind of the last step of the process. What we're gonna do is take our fabric and drape it down, and then repeat the process of pinning and gluing it to where you want it. There we go. Okay, so that's the front, that's the back. Then we're gonna go around and just pin this and glue it in the direction we want. So I have pinned this bottom fabric, but before I pin it, I'm actually making a trim. This is the trim to go along right here. And I'm just taking green ribbon and folding it because I wanted a certain length. You can do it however you would like. And once this is pinned and glued in the size that I want, I'm actually going to remove the pins that are right along this border and carefully glue this to right here and pin to hold all this fabric as we go. And then once this piece and this is dried, I'm going to be pinning it and gluing it. Once that's dried, then I'm actually going to start this fabric and gluing it down. So we've got our trim placed, and we're just going to go along the bottom. We're just going to pin and glue to repeat the process. Now I'm going along the front trim and gluing the top part. Now we give this 30 minutes to dry, and then I'm gonna remove the pins just so I can go in and make sure I'm not missing any pins. I don't want any pins left behind, because on my pins, the top part of these have broken off, so I just want to make sure none get left behind. So now we're at the stage where we're just taking this fabric and gluing it down. And it doesn't need to be pretty. Just take your glue. That's all I'm doing. And then with a foam brush, spread it out. And when you're done with that, carefully lay your fabric. Get your pins and pin it down. Easy peasy, that's all it is. So for the last piece of the fabric, all we're doing is tucking the extra. We're just tucking it under, gluing it, and pinning it. So it's gonna look like this all the way around. That's all we're doing it throughout the entire process. And if you have some left over, trim it, because you can see how much I have left over. You can trim it and just not too much. That's all we're doing. And that's kind of the last step. Then once everything's glued on the trim, we're gonna take our strings, and I'm on the ironing board, and we're gonna unravel them, and we're gonna iron them because we're gonna have some kinks with that. We are definitely at the final touches. So what I'm going to be doing with each strand, I'm gonna unravel it, I'm gonna kind of comb through it, and then yes, I'm gonna iron it to get all the kinks out. And I did happen to make a bow with a long tail on it. I just thought it added some more depth and character, but it's totally up to you when you make your hat. So one last phase.